The name Yanggeun goes back as far as the Goguryeo kingdom and carries the meaning root of the willow tree. The people of this region along the Nomin River built embankments and planted willows to protect their village from the river's rising waters each year. This land of Yanggeun is the hometown where Nogum Kwan Chul Shin, Ambrose, and Jigum Kwan Il Shin, Francis Xavier, were born and raised. The two brothers who would later lead the lectures at Yuo Temple in Cheonjeonam. It was no coincidence that the study gatherings at Yuo Temple in Cheonjeonam began in the mountain valleys not far from Yanggeun. They started there because it was close to Yanggeun, where the brothers Kwan Chul Shin and Kwan Il Shin lived. In 1784, after Peter Yi Sung-hun received baptism in Beijing and returned to Joseon, he first baptized John the Baptist Yi Biak, Augustine Kwan Il Shin, and others at Yi Biak's house near Supio Bridge in Seoul. At that time the younger brother, Kwan Il Shin, was the first to be baptized. And later the eldest brother, Ambrose Kwan Chul Shin, was baptized at Yanggeun together with Louis Gonzaga Yi John Chang and Augustine Yu Hang Jiam. In 1785, a gathering of believers held at the home of Kim Bom-yu in Myeongbang was discovered by the government authorities, and the nascent Catholic Church in Joseon faced its first trial. For a time the faithful were scattered, but as time passed they gathered again, and they resolved not to stop at sharing the word but to celebrate Mass and the sacraments by themselves. At that time there were no priests in the church in Joseon. So leaders such as Peter Yi Sung-hun, Augustine Kwan Il Shin, and Jang Yak Joan were entrusted with celebrating Mass and hearing confessions, thus beginning what is called the lay clergy system. However, as they read the catechism more deeply, they realized that the priesthood is given only to those who receive holy orders, and that lay people acting as priests constituted a grave error. In the end they stopped all celebration of the sacraments and decided to ask for help from the Diocese of Beijing, which then had jurisdiction over Joseon. The one chosen at that time was Paul Yun-Yuil, who had been studying in Yanggeun. Born in Yeoju and later settled in Yanggeun, he studied classical learning under Ambrose Kwan Chul Shin and learned the catechism from Augustine Kwan Il Shin. In the late 1780s, Paul Yun disguised himself as a merchant and set out for Beijing, where he reported the situation of the church in Joseon to Bishop Alexandre de Gouveia and asked for help. He appealed about the problem of the lay clergy system and the issue of ancestral rights, and begged that priests be sent to Joseon. He received a supplementary baptismal rite, ritual completion of the baptism he had already received, and became the first Korean to receive the sacrament of confirmation. Bishop Gouveia's answer was clear. Lay people could not take the place of priests in exercising priestly ministry, so all sacramental celebrations up to that point had to cease, and since sacrifice may be offered to God alone, ancestral rites and ancestral tablets had to be abandoned. This strict response caused a great upheaval in Joseon society, steeped as it was in a Confucian culture of ancestral rites, and in the end led to the incident in Jinshan, Jeolla Province, where Paul Yun-ji Chung and James Kwan Sang-yun burned ancestral tablets. This so-called Jinshan incident became the spark that ignited the Sinhi persecution of 1791. Meanwhile, behind all of these events stood a small community that had taken root in Yanggeun. After being baptized at Yanggeun, Louis Gonzaga Yi John Chang returned to Nipo and became known as the Apostle of Nipo, and Augustine Yu Hang Jiam traveled through the fields and villages of Honam and came to be called the Apostle of Honam. Thus the small sparks that were lit at Yanggeun and spread to Cheongshang and Jeolla grew into a flame of faith that swept across the whole country and sustained the Catholic Church in Korea. Later, when Father James Jo Wenmo entered Joseon, the baptisms that lay people had hastily administered at that time were completed in accord with church law through the supplementary rite, and the roles of priest and lay faithful were finally restored to their proper order. Through the Myeongbang incident, the lay clergy system, and the mission of Paul Yun-Yuil to Beijing, Yanggeun grew beyond a mere local village and became a Catholic community where the faith of the Church in Korea truly breathed. While Louis Gonzaga Yi John Chang and Augustine Yu Hang Jiam, baptized at Yanggeun, returned to Cheongshang and Jeolla to proclaim the gospel. Yanggeun itself became a spiritual hub visited by believers traveling between Seoul, Nipo, and Hanam, a center of faith along their journeys. Yanggeun is the place where faith first took root, and at the same time a land of martyrdom where many shed their blood to defend that faith. In particular, at Yanggeun Shrine the church remembers and honors 9 blesseds. On this land of Yanggeun, whose roots sink deep into the riverside like the roots of willow trees, the faith of Joseon sprouted quietly and grew while shedding blood amid persecution. May the cross that rises over Yanggeun Shrine and the names of the martyrs remembered here lead our daily lives, wherever we may be, once again onto the path of the gospel. For all who have joined this pilgrimage today, and for all who carry sickness, suffering, or heavy burdens of heart, I pray that the Lord's consolation and peace may be with you. Thank you.